Giri Haji. It's on Thursday nights at 9, and it is the BBC's first ever dual language drama that I can think of. So half of it is set in Japan, and the rest is set in the UK. This is another dense one that I'm going to struggle to sort of sum up so we can talk about it. So did you want to have a stab?
I'll have a go. Shall I have a go?
Yeah, you have a stab at this.
So, as you say, this starts off in Tokyo, and we focus on... Is he a detective?
Yeah.
Yes.
Kenzo. He's investigating initially a murder in a restaurant, or a multi-murder in a restaurant involving several members of the Yakuza. And during this, they come across a photograph that would suggest that Kenzo's brother Yuto is still alive and is in the UK. He believes his brother had died, but he then goes to the UK to under the pretenses of attending like a crime lecture headed up by a character played by Kelly MacDonald. While he's there, though, he feels that there's people who are trying to sort of slow him down, and then he's also strikes up a sort of, I wouldn't say a friendship, but a sort of keeps bumping into this rent boy played by Will Sharp. So, and the final scene sees him have a sniper rifle aimed against him. So there's that.
Paul, first of all, you've seen... Yeah. We've only watched the first one for podcast reasons. You've seen the first 3 that are available to us by our special journalistic means. It feels something very new to me, very different. What were your take on it?
Again, there are lots of familiar elements to this. It's quite a classic noir story, you know. You've got the kind of moody detective who just so happens, in this case, to be Japanese. And I must say, I could not wait to see this. I mean, it's created by Humans Joe Barton, so there's pedigree there behind the camera. You've got like 2 top-line Japanese stars who I don't know too much about, but apparently in Japan they're big stars.
No, they're big names, yeah.
Japanese culture I absolutely love. I love old school moody detective noirs, you know, those guys and women actually just trudging the streets late at night, lots of neon lit stuff, and I was like, just mainline it into my veins, give it to me now. So I was really looking forward to it. And what's interesting is that they use sort of bits of mixed media. So there are bits, there's a few animated scenes. Obviously being Japanese, they're taking advantage of that kind of the Japanese love of anime and things like that. So there's an animated scene within the first episode which you think, wow, this is great. Again, everything's shot really cinematically. There's some kind of the widescreen ratio is kind of altered a little bit when there's a bit of flashback stuff, and you kind of think, this is great, you know, this is really inventive and interesting. And the fact that it takes place in the UK and in Tokyo, they do a good job of balancing those 2 things, I think, those 2 locations, very far apart locations. So everything was set up for me to absolutely love this, and I didn't. And I'm still trying to figure out why.
That was quite the cliffhanger.
Yeah.
I
I've been watching too many crime fiction.
Okay, go on then. So you can't quite put your finger on why.
Well, I do know why. It's that I loved the Japanese characters. So Kenzo, who's the detective, and his family were absolutely brilliant.
I felt exactly the same way. I didn't want him to come to the UK at any point.
I know, right? But it was interesting when he did, and I'm not going to spoil it, but there's another significant Japanese character that comes into it at some point. He's fantastic as well, and their relationship and the way they kind of converse is really interesting. It's the British characters that really actually by the end of episode 2 started to do my head in.
Kelly MacDonald and Will Sharp sport that first episode.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
I like them both. I mean, Kelly MacDonald is a fantastic actress, I think. And obviously Will Sharp, I've only seen him in whatever, Casualty, whatever it was. And so it was great to see him land a major role. I just found that characters really annoying and extremely one-dimensional. And we get to see some characters in episode 2 and 3 that are basically right out of the Guy Ritchie school of characterization. And you're just thinking, I love these two Japanese guys. I love the procedural element of why he's over in the UK.
And his family dynamic.
Absolutely. Love all that. Love the way it looks. Love the way it feels. You know, there's a hit woman and there's a London gangster that and even, you know, Will Sharp's character, who is a half Japanese, half British sex worker, which I think is a great idea. You know,
it's an interesting character, isn't it? It could be an interesting character,
absolutely.
I suppose.
And it was just like, no, it just feels like a cardboard cutout, you know, and just an extreme walking cliche, you know.
Do you know what? I'm so glad that you felt this way, because I was thinking, I'm going to come in and I'm going to be the negative one again and say that I didn't like the British sides of it. I'm so pleased that you felt that, because once we got out of Japan, I felt it lost its momentum, and I felt every time he interacted with an English actor or an English character, it just didn't feel like the same show. It just felt like they'd wandered in, and I was really disappointed by that.
I was trying to figure this out, right, and why the British characters annoy me so much, and I tried to figure out, is it just me, you know, because everyone has a subjective, visceral reaction to characters. They like them when they don't, you know, it's just one of those things, right? But I did wonder whether this sort of quite one-dimensional pastiche characterization of the British characters, especially, and even actually, let's face it, the Japanese people, they're Yakuza. That's a stereotype in itself. Yeah. And I do wonder whether Joe Barton was aiming for almost like a live action anime feel to this, with characters that were over the top and were pretty surface, really, because that's kind of what you get in a lot of anime stuff. Because
I'm going to keep on watching.
Yeah, because I love the central story of one conflicted, traumatized man with secrets on a mission to find someone in an alien, you know, location. I think there's still mileage in there. I still really liked that and like that aspect of the story. I'm just going to have to put up with, you know, with these ridiculous London characters, really.
Because what I thought about it, the Japanese family, in a way you could say it's quite cliche, because his daughter's like this dropout and causing problems at school. And
I really like that scene, though.
But I really liked it all.
Yeah.
I really, really liked it all. The scene where they're chatting about being expelled, and it just felt really naturalistic and believable that a father and daughter would have these conversations. But as soon as they got to the UK, I found myself drifting, and at one point checking my email and thinking, no, you can't just listen to this. You got to.
Well, you're going to get a surprising. I can't remember whether it's end of episode 2 or episode 3. Let's just say the daughter comes into it much more.
Okay.
I thought she would arrive into it a bit more at some point, because it seemed to be there was a lot of character development if he was just going to leave her in Japan for the rest of the.
Yeah.
Did you have anything else to add, Matt? I think we sort of all got the same views for once.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm absolutely identical to Paul. I really like the style of it. When they changed into the flashbacks, into the different sort of ratio, and just his performance was excellent. I don't know in the same way when you say the British character, but it was when they were on screen alone. It's like I don't really care about the Kelly MacDonald character or the Will Sharp character. It felt like, a lack of focus maybe. It needed just more focus on that one story. It almost felt like we have to have 2 or 3 stories, because that's what we get in these sorts of spiralling crime dramas, isn't it? You know, we'll focus on the 3, like the Nordic noir influence. That had the 2 or 3 different storylines all linked to the same murder, the same sort of central character. And the meeting with the Will Sharp character as well felt very sort of contrived. We just happened to see him in a pub, and then, you know, you got him to go into this club with him and things like that. And I did really like the animation as well, and I'm glad to hear that will continue.
Kind of wish there was more of that. Actually, that sort of mixed media approach. I just found that you know, it's, as I say, it's quite a traditional old school noir detective story, really, at its heart. Forget all the window dressing of the mixed media and all the rest of it, and the cross kind of continental stuff. It is at its heart an old school detective noir story. I wanted it to be darker. I wanted it to be this kind of racked, traumatized Japanese man not knowing where the hell he is, trudging the London streets. That's what I wanted more of.
It wasn't as much of a fish out of water story as I was hoping, I suppose.
No. The Will Sharp character and the Kelly MacDonald character, even though she is a British policewoman, felt almost like kind of comedy characters, or sort of lightening the mood. And I didn't, even though they're involved in really dark things, their presentation as characters were almost kind of quite light-hearted, and it sort of upset the balance for me a lot.
The thing we didn't see, which I really liked, was the guy. They sent the guy called Terry over to Japan as his replacement. That would have been interesting.
You wanted that series?
Yeah, I wanted that. Yeah. I wanted to see that. Whereas Kelly MacDonald didn't interest me, but I wanted to see how Terry was getting on in Japan.
And I must say, the British police characters that work with Kelly MacDonald's characters are ludicrous.
Yeah, I saw Tony Pitts in there from
him is funny. I just like the most ridiculously stereotyped, gnarly police people you've ever seen, and they're just not believable in the slightest. Whereas, I don't know, there's just something about the Japanese guys that are entirely believable, and the rest of it isn't.
It's so weird, because normally we're quite black and white. We go, I like this, I don't like that. And this has so much promise. But
you really want to love it, right? You
I do.
really want to love it.
I want to shout about it, and I want people to watch it. But then I think they're going to have the same visceral reaction that we did, because all three of us saw it separately and all came to the same decision that half of the show is just not that interesting, and that's such a shame.
It is.
I think it's a real shame. So Giri Haji starts on Thursday at 9 o'clock. There is so much promise there, but the delivery sort of lets it down. I really wanted to love it.